Hello, we are live and this is Laura Live, and today we're going to talk about bridging the gap to conversational speech. So many of our students, of our children, of our even young adults have lots of word labels. They can say a lot of things. And I've got some people joining us now, and let's let you know that this is Laura Live. And we're going to talk about bridging the gap to conversational speech, how to go from basic word labels to having a conversation with somebody and speaking in full sentences and full ideas, and the emotional connection that happens with the conversation and getting your meaning across, rather than just pointing and saying book, saying, hey, did you like that book? Can I have the book? Describing the book. Can I have the blue book? What kind of books did you read last night? What's your favorite book? All those from that's a difficult thing to do. So there's many different, I guess you could say, milestones that happen with conversation or with language. The first one, and the easiest one to overcome, is just basic word labels. And many people think that Gemiini or video modeling is just for teaching you word labels and that it can't teach conversation skills. And that's actually not true. It's really good at teaching conversational skills. And we do it the same way I learned to speak French. So I went to university in France, and I've been taking French since I was a little girl in school. But in school in the United States, I could say a bunch of words, a whole ton of words, a few phrases, but as far as actually having a conversation with somebody, no, I never lived in the country. I hadn't lived in the country yet. So when I moved to France, I was able to take all those tools that I had learned, all that language that I had learned over all those years, and start putting everything together, and it started to make sense. And the first few months, it was hard. It was a lot of work, and my brain hurt. But after that, it was natural. It came out. I thought in French, and all of those basic words that I had learned all came together, and I could have conversations with somebody. It's the same thing with our kids. So first, we need to make sure that they have the building blocks to conversation. They need a lot of word labels. And what's a word label? Just names of things, names of nouns, persons, places, and things. Hundreds and hundreds of them. They have to know names of things. They have to know verbs. They have to know what actions are called. They have to understand pronouns, because we speak in pronouns a lot, and there's a lot of pronoun confusion with people who start to talk. Little kids will get mixed up between he and she and we and they all the time, but people with autism can have that confusion up into their adulthood. So we want to make sure we get the pronouns corrected. And then after that, we want to add some modifiers, big, small, comparisons, that sort of thing. Once we have about 200 to 250 of these components, we can start having conversations. It doesn't take a whole lot of words to have a conversation. Now, the way we teach these, so first we teach these individual concepts, these individual word labels, and we generalize that with this child. So you're going to want to have Gemiini teach them to understand what they are, and then it's your job as a parent or as a school, as a therapist, to get them to start to use it. And by taking them to the store, walking around the community, talking at the dinner table, that sort of thing, to try to point to things and say, hey, look at this, is blue, blue, or look at this, birds, or constantly pointing them out and trying to encourage your student to say these words. Now, how do we get from basic word labels then to conversations? It's very similar to anyone learning any language. We teach them phrases first. So they're going to learn small phrases, carrier phrases. I want, I see, I hear, will you, that sort of thing. And then we're going to build from there. And we have all of our videos are in stages where we'll teach them to build up their conversational skills. Later on, we're going to teach them verb tenses. So it actually happens pretty quickly. Like in the first year, they learn verb tenses. The things that happened before, happening now, are going to happen. And then we start teaching them longer phrases with different words. One that comes to mind is the word available. And I walk as my son and I on the video, and I walked up to him on the snowy mountain. I say, hey, is that sled available? I'd like to sleigh. and I'd like to go down the hill or toboggan or something. And he says, yes, it's available, and then I take it. And we really concentrate on the word available. We say it, we overemphasize it. And then so they understand it in context, and then they start memorizing these little phrases. At first, the children will just use the phrases that they've memorized, just like you would do if you went to Italy and memorized a phrase book. It's the same thing. But when you hear people around you adding on to these phrases, building on these phrases, and now they have enough, I guess, base to start to hear what other people are saying, then they start to build. And it's unbelievably fast how that bridge goes when you're using Gemini. I know lots of people who will say that, oh, my son's reached a plateau or my daughter's reached a plateau. She's been on basic word labels for years. We can't get her to put sentences together. We can maybe get her to put 2 or 3 words together, but that's all. With parents who use Gemini for this, see them go from basic word labels to putting words together in a matter of months. And in 2 years' time, they're having conversations with them. And the children really understand it. After you're through with Quick Start, which is pretty much lots of basic word labels, that's what you need to get through to be able to go to conversation. And a lot of people get confused at what to do. Quick Start's really easy. You just start at the top and go. It's pretty much a year of sessions. After you're done with Quick Start, you're going to want to make your own sessions. And that we have all the pre-filmed videos, but you have to select the ones you want, click on them, and make them into your own customized session. And at that point, you may want to look at the language pyramid. So there's a big button when you log on that says language pyramid, and it will filter out all the 80,000 videos we have on our site to just the level of language that is appropriate for your students. So it makes it really fast to make a session, and it will guide you where you need to go. Now, the top of the language pyramid has these small phrases, these short phrases. Well, what happens if your student's more advanced than that and he really needs to have back and forth conversational skills? Well, at that point, you're going to want to schedule a call with us, because that's when you're getting really specialized. And we have thousands of videos that will be helpful, but we need to show you where they are and hear from you where your student is so we can point you in the right direction. Let me take a question right here. How much is this a month if you can't get help with it? Hi, Deborah. The standard price is $98 a month, and there are scholarships that you can apply for too. So we give the scholarships. You don't have to go out into the community and find somebody who's going to give you a grant. You just have to apply. So when you apply, when you register on our website, it'll say request a scholarship, and then they will ask you a series of questions. It takes you, I think, 5 minutes to apply for a scholarship. And it's not like you have to be destitute or anything. It's really to help people who just can't make ends meet. And we know if you have a child with special needs, the costs are just astronomical. I know from my own experience. So we're here to make sure that everybody can afford it. So don't worry about that. Now, what if you have a student or a child who has a lot of conversation, but the subject matter is the problem? And that's usually, they don't speak back and forth. They speak to someone, not with someone. So typically these people will perseverate on one subject. They love to talk about their video game or the country of Australia or whatever their interest is. And they can just go on and on and on and on and on about this, even if the person isn't excited or interested or bored out of their mind, and they're not reading the social cues, the body language of the other person. So they don't pick up on the fact that the other person is really bored, and they're not making any friends this way. In fact, they're making people uncomfortable. But we have a whole series of videos that shows the viewer what it looks like from the point of view of the other person to when you do that, when you just perseverate on the same subject. And it even shows the person thinking like this or going like this, oh, and it shows, and we have them being able to read the person's mind, saying, you hear the voiceover saying, this guy is really boring. I don't want to hear about this video game. I wish he would just stop. And then it shows the person who's been speaking about the video game stop and say, oh, I'm sorry, you don't want to watch. I can go on and on about my video game. Let's talk about what you want to talk about now. And it shows them correcting themselves. And so you'll be able to see, once they can see themselves the way other people see them and hear them, they tend to start correcting themselves pretty frequently. And you can sort of mold that behavior into conversations pretty quickly within a few months. Now, what if you have somebody who has high functioning skills, can hold a conversation, but's lacking social skills, or has insecurity or anxiety, social anxiety? Well, first off, if you have somebody who has confidence, it's going to lessen the social anxiety. And if you got to find people who are interested in the same things you are. So if it's a teenager or older, find clubs where the kids do the things that your child is interested in. There are sporting clubs, there are gaming clubs. Some people play games with these little figurines and stuff, and they'll get together and they talk about those and they play the games. So there are clubs that are language clubs if you have a student who's interested in learning a foreign language. Also, there are meetup groups where people get together to learn English, and they're all over the world. And if your student is a native English speaker, they could actually go to these clubs and just talk about anything, because the people there want to learn English. And so most of the time you don't have a native speaker that shows up at these places, and so he will be very popular because everybody wants to practice with him. That's a great way, because you're so popular and you're so sought after because of just speaking English, your confidence goes up. And people will be more happy to talk about whatever you want to talk about. And you can practice. You can practice using your language, using your social skills with people who are really open and came there specifically to talk to you. Now, when you have this process of going from basic labels to having a conversation can take years. It takes years in typically developing children. Don't think. I've heard stories of people going into therapy for 3 or 4 months with their child who was 7 or 8 years old and nonverbal, and finally getting into therapy, and after 3 months getting mad at the therapist because the student still was not having a conversation. This is not overnight. Live therapy is not overnight, and Gemiini is no different. It's going to take some time, but you're continually building up those blocks, those building steps of language until you reach your goal. My grandson has severe autism and doesn't talk. He is 6 years old. He has recently started to kick a ball to others. Would you suggest PECS to help him with speech too? PECS works great for people to reduce their frustration. I've heard two aspects. So the research shows that PECS does not inhibit vocal verbal speech. If anything, the research shows that it encourages it. On the other hand, I have talked to parents who say that the kids were starting to talk, and when they introduced PECS, the language stopped. So I just want to throw that out there. I am not convinced either way. I think that with some students, it may just be easier just to pick up the PEC. The problem with that over time, and what some people say, is that it's much faster just to talk, so they're going to be more motivated to talk because it takes too long to hunt for the picture and show it. And so it kind of goes both ways. I would say that if your grandson is really frustrated and can't get his meaning across, then definitely use PECS, because he's not going to get anywhere if he's frustrated. His brain chemistry is going to be is not going to be ready to learn, let's say that. But you should still try Gemiini. And when I mean try it, if he's severe, he probably needs to go through the apraxia protocol, which is you're going to show him 2 different sessions per day. The first one is just you're going to pick out 2 or 3 words that are high interest or highly functional words that he needs to know, like no, yes, and his name, or you want to get him to say it, so his favorite thing to eat. And you're going to add in humor videos every other one. So you start with a funny video, then the learning video, then a funny one, then the learning one, then the funny one, then the learning one. And he's going to watch that in the morning every day for 15 to 20 minutes. And it's only going to be about a minute long, maybe 2 minutes long. So he's going to see it, 7 to 10 times all the way through. The other 2 times of sessions, so he's going to have three viewing sessions a day. The first is just this one very basic video of simple words. The second session he's going to watch is going to be for his receptive language. And I've talked a lot about this before. There are adults now that we know who are considered severely autistic, and people thought that they had no cognition, that they were so cognitively impaired that they had no understanding of anything. And we find now, because of technology, that they're able to type with tablets and things, and they're telling, I'm here, I understand everything you're saying. And they were locked inside, trapped inside their body, and not able to express themselves. So that's dyspraxia physically and apraxia, vocal apraxia. And can you imagine if you were one of these people and someone was trying to teach you the basic word like your name, your whole life, because they thought that you didn't know your name? And not only do you know your name, you can read and you can do complicated math in your head because you've been paying attention to the kid next to you in class and you've been listening and you know all of this stuff, but you can't tell anybody. So we do not want anybody to end up that way. So we're going to make sure that we are feeding the students' intellect with receptive language. So the other session is going to be different every week. You're going to change the session every week, and they're going to learn new things every week. And it doesn't matter if it looks like he's not paying attention. Sometimes he's not able to look like he's paying attention, even though he is. Sometimes he's so locked inside his body that he's not able to get it to sit quietly and watch. But he's listening and he's looking and he's learning. Just give him the benefit of the doubt that he's learning them, and don't watch the same video. I've said this before, but I had talked to a parent who said they tried Gemiini, and this is not a parent, there's lots of parents who've said this, tried it for 6 months and didn't work and they quit. And then I asked them, well, what happened on the 6th week responding call? He said, well, he never said the first fish word, so we just stayed on the same video for 6 months. And so I thought, oh my gosh, no wonder it didn't work. He's bored out of his mind. He's just been there, done that. I'm over it. You can't do that. You have to, the Praxia Procol, that's why we have it broken up into 2 sessions, because the one session, that first session that you're playing in the morning, is specifically for that apraxia issue where you're going to have all those repetitions, but it's really short and it's got lots of funny things in it. And you can change the funny humor videos every week. So he's looking at new humor videos every week. The other one is to learn to understand, to teach him to understand things. So that one you're going to change every week, and it's be a lot more complicated. My son turned 7. We use Proloquo to go. Will you think he can talk with watching Gemiini? His speech therapist says he has apraxia. He tries so hard to talk, but he cannot say words and sounds. On demand, he does produce a few sounds otherwise. Pretty. There are lots of kids who have diagnosis of apraxia using Gemiini, and now they're talking, and a lot older than your son. They're up to 13, 14 years old with severe apraxia who've never been able to talk are starting to talk. Now, are they starting to speak full sentences right away? No, it's taken them a year, and now they have basic labels. So some kids, though, his age, started with Gemiini, and their speech came a lot sooner than a year. They're starting word labels in 6 months. But if he has apraxia, it's going to take thousands and thousands of repetitions. And this is why SLPs in the past didn't think you could teach people to talk, because they had everything that they tried came up short. Well, it's because that they're not sitting in front of the student for 3 hours a day saying ball, ball. It takes 10,000 repetitions for people with severe apraxia to be able to create the speech. And it's not possible with a human being. But with video modeling, especially with the way Gemiini does video modeling, because not only do we do close-ups of the mouth and we slow down the articulation, we also have x-ray videos that show the inside of the teeth and the tongue when the person is making the sound. And it fools the viewer's brain into thinking the viewer himself is actually making those sounds. And then, so what we do is we practice from the inside out. The brain thinks you're talking, and so pretty soon the mouth starts to move, and then after that, sound starts to come out. So it takes time. I mean, so, you know, you're in this could be years of reps, but it will pay off. And in the meantime, it's the best and fastest way for him to learn receptive language, because you can learn so fast with video. You can learn 10 times as fast with video as you can in real life. You just the amount of props that we have, amount of situations that we can show him where you can't do all that in real life. It just takes, the thing about Gemiini is it just gives you so much time that it removes all of the downtime and the busy work out of the day. And so we can learn a lot faster, because the goal with your son is not to have him to talk. I know that's what you want to so badly, and I don't blame you, but that's not the goal. The real goal is get him to understand and to communicate. So we're going to teach him to read, and we're going to teach him to type, and we're going to teach him to write, so that if for some reason he doesn't achieve vocal verbal speech, he's going to be able to communicate just fine with everybody and won't have that horrible locked-in feeling, because that would be terrible. All right, so that is Laura Live for today. And please subscribe and share this with anyone who you know.